Right now, it is time to bring on Ben Axelrod from Awful Announcing. You can check Ben out on X at Ben Axelrod. He's senior editor of Awful Announcing. Ben, how are you doing on this Monday? How was your weekend?
It was great. Had my son's 5th birthday party, so that went well. And just getting ready for football season.
All right. I did see a little. I think I saw a little tweet that you did the Costco for the birthday party, huh?
I did. Yeah,
I like that.
I'll tell you what. If you're looking to save some money, their sheet cakes and their pizza, they'll save you probably half the price of any alternative. So. Not getting paid for that once, but cheap plug for Costco birthday party planning.
Hey man, you gotta save a nickel whenever you can. That's good stuff right there. All right, boy, great sports weekend. A lot of stuff in the news today as far as the Browns, the Guardians, UFC, a monster deal with Paramount Plus and CBS. So much stuff going on, but hey, let's start with the Browns and what you saw against the Carolina Panthers on Friday night. Shedeur and the Orange and Brown have just been leading almost every media platform this weekend as far as coverage. What did you see Friday night?
Yeah, it's really interesting because and this is not a situation we are totally unfamiliar with as Browns observers. Is there's the story of what's happening on the field and then the story of what's happening off the field. And so on the field, I thought he obviously played well. I think that was, about as well as you could have probably reasonably expected him to play. And I think it's pretty clear. It throws kind of a wrench into how they're going to approach this quarterback thing moving forward. I don't think he's, in line to start or that's at this point a real possibility, but it does at least keep the hope alive. And it definitely seems like that pecking order that seemed pretty secure even a week ago is a lot less secure than it is now. And then the off the field is just the amount of attention he gets. I mean, even during the game, during the broadcast, which is a team produced broadcast or in conjunction with the team, and they're showing all the Sanders jerseys out in the stadium in Charlotte. And this is, like you said, he's leading ESPN programming all throughout Monday morning after a long sports weekend. And there is going to be amplified pressure. There's going to be amplified attention on viewing Shedeur Sanders as the Browns quarterback, whether he's playing or not. So it's really an interesting scenario because this is what the Browns knew they were signing up for when they drafted him in the 5th round this past April. And certainly that attention has only been magnified since then.
Ben, I'm sure you noticed, but I could not get over the amount of cheering in Charlotte for Sanders and the Browns on Friday night. I know it's his first time out, and I get the hype, but man alive, that sounded like that game was up on the lake Friday.
He has a fan base that even I, as somebody who follows this stuff pretty closely, I didn't realize how big his personal following was. He wasn't even he was a college football star, but he was, I think, on Colorado even pretty secondary to Travis Hunter in terms of the hype and attention that he got. But you even saw as soon as he got to the Browns, even just, dealing with social media, dealing with Twitter and all of that stuff, the amount of Colorado fans who have now entered the chat and are now a part of the conversation. He brings a massive following with him. And I don't even know if that's something necessarily the Browns were prepared for, but you're right. I mean, it seems like every shot after every play, they're showing a fan in the stands in a number 12 Browns jersey. And like you said, the game was in Charlotte. It wasn't even in Cleveland.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, my God. I actually went back and I DVR'd the game and I watched a little bit of it yesterday, and I just hearing the roar of the crowd on a first down or a completed pass or the touchdown was just, I'm like, wow, this is even more than I thought it was going to be. Ben Axelrod is our guest, senior editor at Awful Announcing. Check him out at Ben Axelrod on X. So we go from here, and my thought was, before the game, I didn't know what to expect. I know what I wanted to see, but I didn't know what to expect. And then I thought, watch him go out and play really, really well and semi gum up the works of what we're trying to do here in this rebuild with this organization and this franchise. And by God, here we are again. Now we're like, oh, well, who's one, who's two, has it been shrunk a little bit? How do we approach the next couple of weeks? How do we approach the season opener, the depth chart? It's like, here we are again because somebody maybe has, I don't know, done a lot better than maybe that we anticipated. And now it looks like to me, Ben, that the organization might be not definitely, but possibly thinking about retooling the way that they do things here the next month or so.
Yeah, I can't remember the first time you and I spoke on the radio here. It must have been at least over a month ago now. Mm-hmm. And I think you asked me, what I expected out of the Browns quarterback situation. And I said, any combination of the four, as far as what the depth chart looks like it would not surprise me. You could sell me on any combination of those four guys being in any order on the depth chart, and I could at least understand the case for it. I think we're still at that point. I mean, I think at this point it'd be hard to imagine Shedeur still being fourth, but that is ultimately the position he is still, it seems like, locked into. And so, I don't know. In the longer they go without announcing a starter, had they just announced Joe Flacco as the starter a week ago, you could at least start to kind of formalize your plans for the season, but they haven't even done that. And so that to me tells me they'd really like, Kenny Pickett to potentially win the job, but his injuries have obviously thrown a wrench to this. Dylan Gabriel has been dealing with a hamstring as well. And so that's thrown a new wrinkle into all of this, but here we are on August 11th, and it doesn't feel like we're any closer to an answer for what this team is going to do at quarterback than we would have been on June 11th or May 11th, for that matter.
Inside that building, I'm anxious to get your thoughts and pick your brain on where do you think that the individuals are now on Sanders and the chart and where they think this is going to go. And from Jimmy and D to Andrew to Stefanski to maybe some of the other assistant coaches, can you read that room at all right now, or is it still a little bit too early?
Yeah, it's tough because we know how that building works. And obviously there have been situations where ownership has gotten involved to varying levels. And so you never quite know. And there's obviously been a lot of speculation about whether or not they were involved in the Sanders pick, which Jimmy Haslam has understandably denied. I think that, I think a week ago, it seemed pretty clear they wanted Gabriel ahead of Sanders. And I do think that this past week, with Gabriel missing time and then with the way Shedeur played in the game, it makes me think that's a more open competition and that it is possible that the season could open with Shedeur ahead of Gabriel behind a veteran. I do think one of the veterans is going to start, whether it's Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett. But it wouldn't surprise me then if the other veteran is either cut or if he's traded away to maybe a team that's in a more desperate situation. And so at that point, you are looking at Shedeur Sanders potentially being the number 2 quarterback on the depth chart entering the season. I know they said they're open to having 4 quarterbacks to start the season. I don't really see any scenario where it makes sense for them to do that. And so I do think now you are looking at a more open competition between Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, which ultimately does matter because that's going to put the guy, whoever wins that, first in line for, when this season inevitably falls off the tracks and they do start to look toward the future rather than sticking with a veteran in the present.
Ben Axelrod is our guest. Check him out at Ben Axelrod on X, senior editor at Awful, announcing so the Browns will be in Philly. A joint practice this week. They'll play the Eagles Saturday at 1 p.m., and then we'll have a whole lot more to talk about a week from today. Let's shift across the bay there a little bit and talk about the Guardians, who seemingly, Ben, they're just kind of hanging around. I mean, if they would have won and Detroit lost yesterday, we'd have been talking about a team that was only 5 out in the division. They're right there on the cusp of a wild card. They're 5 games over 500. What's your take on the Guardians as you get set for the Marlins and Braves coming to town for the next 6 days?
Yeah, I mean it's a good situation. It's again, you and I probably talked at one point where we were talking about this team is clearly in sellers mode, and they obviously did shop around Stephen Kwan, but a deal never materialized, and that ultimately might wind up being the best acquisition that this team made at the trade deadline was not trading Stephen Kwan, because they're right there in it, and the Marlins and the Braves are two teams from the NL East who have had their share of struggles this season, especially the Braves. And so if they can take advantage of these games and Detroit can continue to look as shaky and they can continue to take advantage of the games they have remaining in the AL Central, I mean, I'm just as locked into the division race as I am the wild card race. And so I think this team is this has been, a borderline 500 team for most of the season, but they have started to kind of rise above that trajectory in the last month or so, really since the All-Star break or heading into the All-Star break. And so I think they're right where they need to be still, and it's just a matter of what they're able to do heading down the stretch.
Well, they got a couple of big series with the Tigers down the road. They got a big series with the Mariners coming up at the end of August. And obviously we're all scoreboard watching with the Yankees and the Red Sox and some other teams. But I'll tell you what, man, I don't know how Stephen Vogt is doing it, but I love watching him work because let's face it, he's not working with a $400 million payroll, but he gets those guys to play, man. I tip my cap to him.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, the thing with the Guardians is the lineup, it feels like for really the last decade, or at least since 2016, which I guess now is a decade, it's always felt like the pitching would be there, whether it's the starters or whether it's the bullpen, and the hitting was kind of what they would need to piece together. And this season, you've had more inconsistency out of their pitching, both in the rotation and in the bullpen, than I can really remember since Terry Francona first took over the team in 2013. And so the fact that they're still doing that with the inconsistent hitting, I mean, this is about as good of a managing job as we've seen from a guy who already has one Manager of the Year title under his belt. So, hats off to Stephen Vogt, no doubt about it.
Ben, the fact that these guys are out of sight, out of mind, and I'm talking about Luis Ortiz and Emmanuel Clase, do we hear anything? What's the latest on that investigation, or is it just like, hey, they're not with us anymore, forget about it, let's just move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a Guardians perspective, that's exactly what it is. I think, especially with Clase, it seems like the writing is on the wall there that it seems like, from most indications, he's thrown his last pitch as a member of the Cleveland Guardians, which still seems kind of crazy to say. Ortiz probably isn't too far behind, but that's the sense I get is there are some hard feelings about this. Obviously, the Guardians are not happy about this. And the fact that they did clean out the lockers as immediately as they did, I think the approach that they're taking is exactly how you laid it out. That it's out of sight, out of mind. Let's worry about the 26 guys we have in this clubhouse.
Just a quick note on the NBA, and we'll move on to something else. But pretty cool to see the Cavaliers are back in action on Christmas Day again this coming season, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's going to be a homecoming for Donovan Mitchell as well, going back to New York. So kind of a built-in storyline there. I believe they're going to kick off the slate. So maybe before those NFL games get underway, this will be one of the more highly watched games. But yeah, definitely, that's the NBA puts their most prominent teams on Christmas Day, and Cleveland has certainly earned that right with what they've been able to accomplish the last few seasons. So I'm right there with you. Very cool to see.
Yep, I thought that was really cool. All right, to UCF for a minute, and Dana White with the stroke of a pen today put $7.7 billion in his pocket. USC coming to Paramount Plus and CBS beginning in 2026. This means no more pay-per-view. Can you believe the number that was landed upon for that contract agreement?
No, it's pretty crazy. And that's all indications were UFC was looking for $1 billion annually, and they wound up getting more than that. They did give up everything, though. They gave up their pay-per-views, and this is going to be their only partner, at least in the United States. There was kind of an idea that, the popular thing is to split the rights up across partners, and Paramount will be their exclusive partner. But this is a home run deal for them. Their sister company, WWE, signed a home run deal with ESPN a week ago. So definitely good to be in the fight business, whether it's real fighting or fake fighting. But yeah, this deal is massive, and I think it's good. Not only good, obviously, for the money, but good for the exposure. I mean, you're going to have pay-per-view level events, pay-per-view quality events, not only available on Paramount Plus, but it sounds like a lot of them are going to be simulcast on CBS as well. So this is going to be kind of unprecedented exposure for UFC. And this was kind of the big media rights deal that was still hanging out there, and there aren't many of them that are going to be available between now and the end of 2028 when baseballs becomes available again. And this wound up proving to be, every bit as massive as I think even the most optimistic UFC fan could have thought it would have been.
I mean, I never thought I would see the day, and I don't mean to be the old man on the front lawn, but if you'd have told me that UFC and CBS were going to be joined at the hip, and WWE and ESPN, if you'd have told me that 15, 20 years ago, I'd have laughed you right out of the building. It seems like we're taking a little bit of I don't want to say a crazy turn, but man, things are starting to slant in a little different direction now than they did a while ago, Ben. Just as far as, the big core sports, now these other sports they're jumping right in, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, that's when I was growing up, it was the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, and the NHL. That was your big four. And now I don't think NHL is anywhere near that conversation. I think if you were to say what the big four are, it's obviously the NFL. I think it's obviously college football. NBA still deserves a spot there as well. And then the fourth, you could make a case for baseball. You could make a case for WWE. You could make a case for UFC. You could make UFC, you mentioned 20 years ago. You go back 30 years ago, like we were having congressional hearings about whether or not this sport should be legal.
Right,
and
right.
So the fact that now it is going to be on CBS national airwaves on broadcast television with an event, being hosted at the White House 4th of July weekend, it's a crazy, crazy turn. And I think it speaks to a variety of factors. And I think gambling plays a role in all this. Gambling is huge in the UFC community. Obviously there's some political tie-ins now too, between Donald Trump's relationship with UFC and the White House. And so it's definitely something that's been accelerated, but even, in 2018, UFC signed a 5-year, $1.5 billion total deal with ESPN, and people thought that was a crazy overpay for ESPN. And now you look, and just 7 years later, they're getting $1.1 billion annually. I think that speaks to this sport's acceleration more than anything.
Incredible. Ben, I got about 60 seconds. Just want to ask you real quick your thoughts. You speaking about ESPN, it looks like they may want to jump back into the Major League Baseball rights when this new contract is coming up for bid. Are they going to be a major player, or is this just a lot of talk right now because they're in the news a lot?
Yeah, so they opted out of their MLB deal following this season. They did it but before the start of this season, but it will go into effect next season. And for ESPN, it was just a matter of dollars and cents. It was they didn't feel like they were getting fair value, especially in comparison to some of the deals that MLB was signing with Apple and Roku TV. So they just didn't think it was a good deal. They had the ability to opt out, so they opted out. But they've always been open to getting a piece of that package, whether it's the Home Run Derby or the Wild Card Series back. And I think baseball has found, as it hit the open market, that ESPN's evaluation of the deal was probably correct. And so I think MLB is open to it as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because like I said, there's not a lot of rights available between now and the end of 2028. And this small piece of the baseball package is one of them.
Yep, no doubt. Ben, always appreciate your time. Have a great week. We'll talk with you down the road. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sam.
You bet. Ben Axelrod. Check him out on X at Ben Axelrod. He is the editor of Awful Announcing. It is a great site. They cover everything sports related and some other pop stuff too. And they do a great job. So check them out on all of your social media platforms.